personnel budget. Mr. Cliff, am I in the right spot now? Mr. Clifford? Okay, Mr. Clifford.
I've got a handout that I put together today, if you could pass those down. Isn't it?
Is
There's
that
three? Yeah, here's one more. Okay. Four.
Okay.
Oh, is that in the packet?
No, I just did it today. You can,
All right,
I've
we
got
don't-
one for them.
Did you compose this, or was it from Ryan?
I'll explain that, so we'll wait till they get their packets, okay?
Okay.
I have questions about the...
Yes. Ms. Rathman should have a copy.
Absolutely, that's what I was thinking. You made a
Give
question?
me a second.
Was missing my
No, it was not in the packet. No.
Can you give a draft enough onto look at Mr. Rathman? Can you make sure that that doesn't like, that's information that we can, there's nothing identifying in that information or anything like that before we put it up? That's not, you can still be identifying a couple of names. We can still be identifying. It depends on the number. No, that's fine, as long as it's, I just want ours. Okay. Okay. Just look at
The budget information I had, I sent an email to Lisa, and I think I CC'd the pupil personnel director as well, or asked that it be forwarded to her, and I squared away some of it with Alicia this morning, because in the report for the September report, let me start with the enrollment, I guess. In the September report, it notes that we had, the beginning of the school year has been met with challenges, that we've had 17 new IEP registrations. And I have been watching the enrollment numbers on the RIDE website for regular ed enrollment and special ed enrollment, mainly because of the issue with the stage 1 and stage 2 applications. But when you go to the RIDE website, you can actually draw up and generate the report for students in the district that have IEPs. And I'm puzzled by the comment that we had 17 new in the monthly report from the pupil personnel director. And I know the committee hired a new, in the minutes it indicates you hired a new teacher aide at the elementary level for special education because of the increase in the enrollment. But if you print out from the RIDE report, the RIDE report seems to suggest that there was a decrease in the number of students with IEPs over last year, not an increase. So the first document in the handout, I believe, is the table that I did, just showing the difference between the buildings. And the other 2 pages are the actual reports that I drew up and called out and printed out from RIDE. So I mean, it's just that the numbers directly contradict the need for additional teacher assistant, I think. And I don't know, did we give these numbers on the RIDE website, I thought were generated based on the numbers that we provided to RIDE. So did we provide the wrong
Let me speak to
numbers?
that for a moment. First and foremost, students with IEPs can range anywhere from a speech-only IEP, which means they come in for walk-in services, right up to a self-contained IEP.
Right.
These numbers that are on RIDE are reflective of a student that has any type of an IEP,
Right.
regardless of what it is.
Right.
We had 17 new registrations this summer, which were students that had IEPs that were complete IEPs, which included services by a special educator, not just a walk-in service that required additional supports. If you see a drop, that may be a drop in some of our walk-in students. However, it doesn't necessarily, it's not reflective of the type of IEP that we are supporting in the classroom.
Mr. Rathman, I have a question, and Mike, I want to make sure is this a request you're asking? Mike, is this?
Well, I guess,
Is it, I'm asking, if I can, is it the request you're asking about for her, this one? This one?
This doesn't disaggregate it by grade. We had a major influx in grade 2.
Grade 2.
Yeah, it was,
And I'm not really prepared to go
no,
into this
you
report
shouldn't
tonight
be.
because I haven't
It's just-
seen this.
Yeah, I don't believe it's really appropriate, but
Sure. I can-
Yeah, I guess, well,
we'll give you the report again that Suzanne presented with substantial numbers of transfer-ins, especially in grade 2. Your report doesn't disaggregate by grade, and I think that's critical. We had a substantial influx at NSES, especially in grade 2. And that's where the program was, and that's where the need was. So we'll be glad to reissue that report to you and to Mr. Lombardi.
yeah, I'd just like to know if RIDE got the wrong enrollment data, or if this needs to be corrected to match what we're saying, or,
I'm not prepared to actually speak on this because I don't know, every month RIDE's data is different. We enter into the census. This doesn't even, I don't know what this is, what month this is. I'm glad to give you some answers, but I need to be prepared to do that. I can't just answer on the fly. If you would understand that, Mr. Chair, I'm sorry.
No, I understand that.
I'm a little confused with the
first-
question.
Yes.
I was talking,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
Well, I'm answering your question. The first report that I generated was last year's report, the October enrollments of 2014-15 school year. The second one was the October enrollment as of this year. And those are the numbers that I used to do the little Excel spreadsheet to kind of figure out what, how do we get to that number that we're showing an increase when this seems to suggest there should have been a decrease.
Okay, the director has to have, first of all, she's got a job to do handling all the IEP, students with IEPs and 504s and various other things. As a parent of kids in the schools, I want to make sure that our directors, that's what her focus is on, not on preparing extra reports about questions about, let me rephrase it. I want to make sure she's got her time to do what she needs to do. Second, she just received this just now. If she's going to answer this report or the questions, she's going to need some time to answer it. And third, I want to, and I don't want to take it out, but I know you referred to a request, I believe, and if I'm pulling this wrong, please say. But we looked at this. You also, I know, forwarded a request for information regarding the number of students attending charter schools, vocational schools, special ed schools. Is that what we're talking about now?
No, I think I was asking for that for the budget.
That's more on the
Budget
budget.
update.
Okay, so that would be more on the budget update. Okay.
Right.
We'll address that in the budget update.
On the state.
Well,
Want me to stare again?
I wonder if I could ask a question before we get on to another subject.
Sure.
Sure.
Do IEP students, do they fluctuate on a monthly basis?
They do, and we've had some issues with residency. So there can be some fluctuation. Our students, a child who has an IEP, every 3 years has to be reevaluated. So at the time of reevaluation, and that fluctuates for every student, it could be October, September, November, the level of service can in fact change depending on what those evaluations show. It could be an increase in service, a decrease, or it could be that a child has done so wonderfully, and that happens because we have amazing teachers in the district, that children exit from special ed. So yes, those numbers can in fact fluctuate from month to month.
May I ask you what a walk-in IEP is?
A walk-in IEP is a young student, usually age 3, prior to preschool. We're not required as a state to provide preschool placements except for our IEP students. However, we are required to provide integrated, which means that's why we have peer models. So the students who don't require specialized instruction in a preschool setting, that only have a need to have maybe some articulation services, speech, possibly some OT services, those students don't qualify for a preschool placement. They qualify for what's called walk-in service, because that's least restrictive environment for them. So they would come in, they would receive their services, maybe a half an hour a week by a speech-language pathologist, and then they would go to their regular preschool wherever their parents have them placed.
Thank you.
You're so welcome.
We'll talk about the other thing later on then when the appropriate time. Okay.
I'm good?
I didn't expect an answer tonight, Susan. I just wanted to know, why did these numbers not jive with what seems to be being suggested? And I wanted to make sure that they entered correctly the numbers that were sent to them.
But I don't know what you mean by...
That's what's being suggested.
Yeah, I
I'm
don't know what
a
you
little confused, because Mrs. Rathman presented a very accurate data and a proposal that substantiated the need for an additional TA, and without that, and I think you actually got one grant funded, and if without that, she said that it was highly likely several would be placed out of district. It was relevant and directly related to the grade 2 numbers and the number of students that transferred in. We'll get that report to you. What you're reflecting has nothing to do with her proposal. It really doesn't, Mike. we could go down 12 students at NSCS, but the need could be twice as great as the kids that were there. It doesn't match because you have one less special education child or two less, that you're gonna have less services. It really is directly contingent upon their need and their services. So I just wanna make sure there's no allegation towards Mrs. Rathbun. She presented accurate data, forthright data. She presented a proposal to the school committee. You approved it. We'll get you that proposal. I don't see the connection from this to that proposal, that's all.
All right, we got a lot on the agenda. Let's move on. Thank you, everyone.
Oh, can I just point out one thing?
Yeah, you're
It's, on the same item, on
the same item still?
yeah, special education census and pupil personnel budget.
We have a long night.
In the October administrator's report, I just want to point out, so there's no misunderstanding here. The out-of-district update, it's listing the pupil personnel office budget for the school year as $1,594,336. That dollar amount was the proposed budget, not the adopted budget. The adopted budget was $1,487,817, and Alicia confirmed that today, that it was, the wrong number was plugged in there, or it
The wrong
should have been
number.
proposed.
Correct, absolutely right.
Mike, you're next. Staff with FY 16.
Well, I had asked for, I was hoping that we'd receive this evening some type of update. It's the 5th month of the fiscal year, and we don't know whether we're running a deficit or a surplus. And the committee has been spending some money to fill new positions and create new positions and such. And I think it's, you know, it's a little nerve-wracking because we might be deficit spending if we truly haven't recognized the $200,000 the dollar amount that was budgeted for the turnover allowance. You know, we're behind the 8 ball before you even begin. Not only if we haven't achieved the savings in that turnover allowance, but in addition to that, we added to the budget with the other items. So I think the budget committee has been suggesting for years now that each department of the town do a pro forma budget so that we can, at the push of a key, walk into a town office, for example, and ask Mr. Pomeroy to generate a pro forma budget and tell us where we are to date in each department. And the suggestion in the budget committee report for the last 7 years was that all town departments have a pro forma budget and generate something to that effect. And I think that the key is knowing that information in advance. You don't want to find out in the last month of the year that you're going to have a surplus, or in the last month of the year that you're going to have a deficit. You want to know that up front as you go through the year. Mr. Parmalee did build a pro forma budget that he provides to the town council every quarter, but if you needed to go in and have them updated, he could update it for you. The work is in setting the thing up, not in keeping it current, but basically in taking the time to go through your past year's expenditures and seeing how much you spent in each month of the fiscal year, and then prorating it out in your pro forma budget. It's a lot of work to set it up. Once you set it up, you have a really good handle on where the budget stands all along.
You don't need district to do this by chance?
Please?
You don't need district to have a model for this or anything like that?
Well, you could get it from Mr. Pomeroy. He did one for the town, so we could get it for us. But I think the point is, I know that there's been procrastination on providing an update on the salaries and benefits because not all the changes have happened yet, but some of the changes have happened. And to be 5 months in the fiscal year and not realize that we're making the goal for the savings in personnel salaries for a turnover allowance, I mean, all the retirements have been handled, so.
Through the chair, if I can. The last 3 meetings now, Lisa has updated on salaries and benefits. We have achieved and reached our turnover allowance. She has said that at every meeting.
And that was stated at the last
It
meeting.
was, yeah, it
She
has
said
been
it
out.
was
That was made clear at the last meeting.
Yes.
My point is,
My point.
I'd like
No,
to
let
see-
her finish, please, can she finish? Let her finish. Go ahead.
We are constantly looking at our budget. We are constantly on top of things. I understand that we are 5 months into the fiscal year, but unfortunately, we're really only 1 and a half months into operating. Our invoices for October are just coming in. We're just starting to really see what's going on in the big items like transportation and fuel and all those things that are just starting to happen. Salaries and benefits, they are pretty much, we are all tied up now. We have hired everybody, everybody is in, we've achieved our turnover allowance, and we're looking good in that department.
Well, that's what, I'd like to see those numbers, so that's what I'm saying. I'd like to, in the monthly report, get some type of update as to, you know, how did we achieve it, what are the line items, print out a new budget and show us, you
Well,
know.
we don't update line by line on each single person, salaries and benefits. It won't be person by person. We do that at budget time. So right now, I'm creating the salary and benefit budget, which is reflective of exactly who is hired right now in this moment for next year. So that's a good update for you.
Yeah.
The budget that will be submitted next month.
Good things to point out both sides.
And,
Can we do that?
and the same thing with the transportation accounts, and the out-of-district placements. That's what I put in the memo requesting the item be placed on the agenda, that we get some salary and benefit costs reflecting the changes in personnel and benefit costs that have occurred year to date. I'd also like the members to be provided with some current placement census, out-of-district placement census, indicating the number of Smithfield students attending each charter school, vocational, and special ed placement at which we currently have students enrolled. You know, if we're on target, if we're over budgeted in those areas, it's important to know that up front.
Ms. Rathman, do you have anything to speak to on that? Did you get that request from Mr. Clifford?
I
Can
did.
you, was there some issues with that? or-
I can only speak to the out-of-district piece of it.
Yeah, to that.
And my report, what I give you each month, is basically what I can provide you with as far as information. You know, my job is to protect my children and their families and their confidentiality. And when you only have 19 students out of district over maybe 7 different placements, it's very difficult. You know, RIDE has come down with a statement that if you have 10 or less students in any given placement, you cannot be providing names, initials, dates of birth, grades, anything that would be considered to be identifiable. And I've already conferred that and confirmed all of that with Andrew Hennius, and he completely supports that. So what I can provide you with is how many students we have out of district. I can tell you some of the schools that we utilize, but that's as far as it goes.
Could you just explain to the committee the work that you and Lisa do on a monthly basis?
In 17 words or less?
Well, it's in great
It's
detail.
quite a
I
bit,
think
yes.
if there's any question about the amount of tracking and data that you put into your spreadsheet and you work with Lisa on a monthly basis on primarily on out-of-district placements, I think that's huge. I mean,
However, it has to remain confidential.
yes, I know, but it's just that it's not as if that we go week to week and month to month.
No.
I mean, you look at those constantly, and that's the whole point. You
Almost
still-
daily.
Yeah.
Yeah.
so,
I do think so.
I mean, we'll talk about this later on in the meeting, but I mean, and I know I'll disagree with some people on the committee on this, but I'm concerned that we have too many requests being made of our staff, taking them away from their day-to-day operations, but I know that's later on, we'll get. All right, Mike, next up, you have,
I just
I'm
want to
sorry.
ask Alicia one time. When you do your budget, when you're doing it for 17, do you have people update 16 and then you do 17?
That's for salaries and benefits specifically.
For everything?
I do it specifically for salaries and benefits. Everybody departmentally does it their own.
Okay, so they do their
specific
16
way.
update and then they do a 17 estimate, so you get both at the same
I'm
time?
not sure exactly
Okay.
what they're doing, but I have to do that for salaries and
So
benefits.
all the departments are actually in, and I started a review process with them, so they completed their proposed FY17.
Yep.
And the data that they were given to date, they've given a few different columns, but it was their FY16 approved, their FY16 expended year to date, and then I think how many previous years.
Correct.
And then they're also given a
They don't do like a
spreadsheet.
revised 16?
I'm sorry,
They
please?
don't do a revised 16? You know what I mean by
I
revised?
think
You
what
could
they-
update 16 before you can jump to 17. At least that's the way I do a budget, but I'm just throwing.
I would definitely agree with you if we're doing this budget preparation when we should be doing it, which to me is in March and April. To update it now, it doesn't give you a lot of data, John. There are some transfers, but because of the anomaly where this town asks for it so early in the year and we're putting it, principal